Welcome to the final video in our three-part series about how to find the right manufacturer to work with for you and your product. So in video one, we talked about why so many brands and startups struggle with manufacturing. What is it that they can do to improve their process and beat the overwhelm and the stress? In video number two, we talked about the three key things everyone looking into manufacturing should do in order for manufacturers not to ignore them, to respect them and take them seriously, and more importantly, want to work with them. So if you have noticed, the information I have given you was not at all rocket science. It was in fact common sense. Yet so many choose to ignore it and kind of almost blindly jump into the process and do all the wrong things that give the wrong impressions to the people they so much want to work with. So assuming that you've absorbed the content in videos 1 and 2, let's move on. In video 3, we will look at the final puzzle of the manufacturing process, and that is where to find manufacturers. Now, back in the day, before the internet, it was there wasn't so many possibilities to know where to go and manufacture. People tended to manufacture locally, or if they knew someone abroad, or if they had heard of a particular factory, they might send a few faxes, jump on a plane and go and see those faraway factories. But now, with the internet, the world is our oyster. We can manufacture anything, anywhere in the world, at any time. But with so much choice, what happens is that most people get an idea. They think of, I want to make something, and they go into Google, type in what they're looking for plus manufacturer, and more often than not, Alibaba comes up as a result. They go into Alibaba, approach a few Chinese factories, they send some vague emails to them. They get someone saying, yes, I can do that, and on they go happily, thinking that this is the answer to what they were hoping for, the manufacturer they needed to make their product. But more often than not, that just leads to problems. So what should you do instead? Well, if you are just starting up, or if you're a small brand looking to develop a new idea that you are not so confident about, you don't know much about, the best thing to do is to work with someone locally. Find someone around you within the same country or within the same locality that you can work with to develop that idea, to get the patent made, to develop it into a first sample, into a prototype, and perhaps even go on with them and do your first, second, third small productions, just until you learn the process, just until you understand what are the potential problems that can happen and iron out all of these little obstacles that might come up in the way. Once you're feeling more confident, or if you already are experienced in manufacturing and you're looking for a new manufacturer for whatever reason, then you can find them through various directories, including Alibaba, but there's so many directories out on the internet now. There are local directories that represent manufacturers in localities, like, let's say, Make It British in the UK, or there's Make a Rose for the US, and various others that represent factories from around the world. And you can also ask agents, ask suppliers for recommendations. I mean, suppliers is someone that is constantly shipping materials to so many factories, and through talking to their clients, they have an information of potentially who's good, what type of manufacturers are out there. So speaking to them is always a good idea, as well as asking other people in Facebook groups, in other communities you might have of creatives. But aside of this, what is also really important to understand is the various locations around the world. They have factories that specialize predominantly in something more than something else. So I'll give you an example. For example, China is great at making everything. You can do from leather goods to clothing to jewelry, anything you can make in China. But the problem with China is that it's very far away and the quantities are large. So unless you are a large retailer with the capacity to order hundreds, if not even thousands of units, China is really not the best place for a small brand to manufacture, not to mention that it's not as cheap as it used to be. By comparison, in the UK, we have in the UK a great garment manufacturing community of factories, and they can manufacture small quantities and small production runs. but they're not so cheap. So they are perhaps better suited for someone who is more upper level, more premium brand, able to pay those prices, and who also wants to manufacture a small amount of units. Other countries that are great for manufacturing, and there's so many around the world, but other countries, just to mention a few, are, for example, Turkey. They're great in cotton textiles, in jerseys, in leather goods, in garments. Portugal is great again in outerwear, in stretch materials like jerseys, etc. Eastern Europe is great in manufacturing garments, and of late also leather goods. So there's so many different manufacturing pockets around the world, but you really need to know what is it that you want to manufacture, at what cost, and how many units, what kind of minimum order quantity would you be able to commit to manufacture, finance and pay for. But also you need to have the possibility to then sell it, because without selling it, you're sitting on money, you're losing out. But knowing that information, knowing what you want to make and at what cost, and your minimum order quantity, then you would be able to go and examine the different manufacturing pockets around the world and see what is best suited for you. Because, like I said, China is large volume. Turkey, Portugal, Eastern Europe, it's in the middle. But again, we're talking a few hundred units that they require. The UK is less but more expensive. So anywhere you go has some variables that you have to consider. So as you can see, while we have so much choice and it's so much easier to find manufacturers in this day and age, what again it boils down to, and what is really crucial, is your knowledge, you knowing your product, the cost of manufacturing, the cost that you want to sell it at, and know your channels of how are you going to sell this product in order to be able to figure out to what quantity you would be able to commit for manufacturing. So in these past 3 videos, we have covered these topics, but really and truly, we have just scratched the surface. There is so much more to know, and to help you learn more, for those of you who want to learn more and go deeper into the subject, I have put together a 4-week, a 4-module and a 4-week course, online course, about exactly these topics: how to find the right manufacturer for you and your product. And during those 4 weeks, we would cover all the necessities you need to have in place, like tech packs, spec sheets, we would go through how to work out the cost at which you want to manufacture, where to find those manufacturers, how to approach them, and much, much more. So if you are interested in joining this course, there is a button below this video. Sign up and read up a little bit more about the course and what it would entail. And in the course of these 4 weeks, you would also be able to work more closely with me and have all your questions answered, and perhaps find in the process of those 4 weeks the manufacturer that is right for you. The course is self-paced and it's self-study, but during the next 4 weeks, when the course begins, there will be weekly calls and interactions and Q&A sessions, and really I would be available for you to help you answer all your questions and beat the stress, the overwhelm, in order to find the right manufacturer to work with for you and your product. So thank you for sticking with me during these trainings, and I hope to see you in the next few weeks in the course.